say. I have to say two people, and one of them, I didn't know she was doing it. My aunt, who was very dear to me, had prayed for me all my life. And of course, sort of in my lifetime, not being raised in a Christian home or stuff, sometimes we made fun of that. Sometimes we acted like it wasn't going on and it didn't matter anyway, and all those things. But she prayed for me all of my life. And until she passed away a few years ago at 102 years old, she still prayed for me. I was a hairdresser, and Barbara was a client of mine. She came to my shop every Thursday at 2 o'clock, and I did her hair. And she was a good client. And she would come in and sit in my chair and talk about God and talk about her pastor and invite me to church, and she'd do it over and over and over again. Then she began to invite me to come to church on a Sunday, and she would talk about how her Pastor Bill was preached this sermon and that sermon, and you just love him and you need to come, and on and on and on. And after some time I began to think that if I didn't go to church with her once and maybe shut her up, then I'd probably lose her as a client, and that's a good client, like I said. So after some time, I went once, and boy, I sat way in the back of the church, and when that thing was over, I was out there like a shot. And couldn't wait to get in the car and have a cigarette. Had to get out of that place. And then I thought, now she'll stop. She'll leave me alone, and she'll still be my client. But she didn't stop. She kept inviting me back and inviting me back, and talking and talking and talking about the Lord and about Pastor Bill and all those things. And finally, one more time, I thought, I'll go back. And this time, if she doesn't stop, she can just leave. I don't care if she goes. And I went, and that time, again, I sat way at the back of the church. And the only thing I can say about Pastor Bill's sermon that day was he talked about God loved me and died for me. And for some reason, somehow, at no other time had that, I came to realize that it was true. He loved me and he died for me. And towards the end of the service, Pastor Bill had an altar call. At that time, I didn't know what that meant. But he invited us to come down to the altar and be prayed for. And I couldn't stay in the chair. I tried to stay in the pew and stay there, but I couldn't. And I got up and went down, and he led me to the Lord. And it was an amazing day. I don't know how long it took, but it wasn't once. I was pretty stubborn. It took quite a while. And the truth is, it took a while because I just wasn't interested, and I was cynical about it. But I didn't want to lose her for a client until finally I just thought, I'll just go this once. But she was persistent, and she didn't quit. She didn't give up. And she loved me right into it, you know. The changes in my life began that day, that very day. Nothing all fell away and all that, but my thinking changed and my life changed. And that day, that very day, I did just what I usually did. I went home and mixed me a martini. And I needed it because that had just made me, wow, what's going on here, you know. I always went to the shop early to get the place straightened around, get ready to open it up for the day. And I would put a pot of coffee on, and I'd sit at the table in the kitchen part of the shop, and I'd have a cigarette and a cup of coffee while the floor dried. And this day, I did the same thing, and I reached for my package of cigarettes. And I was a chain smoker, 2 or 3 packages a day. And I reached for my cigarette, and I didn't hear God's voice, but I heard it in my heart and my head. I don't like that. And I just put the package of cigarettes down and pulled my hand away. I didn't think about it. I didn't think, no, I won't do this anymore. And none of that crossed my mind. I just put them down. And that's the last time I ever picked up a package of cigarettes. And what amazed me, and everybody I've ever talked to who were heavy smokers who quit, I never never wanted one. I never went back to get another one. I never reached for that package of cigarettes. And it's nothing I did. I didn't quit smoking. God did it, you know. And he did the same with alcohol. I would go home at night. I drank every night of my life for years. Just within that same period of time after I had accepted him as Lord, I went home and I went to the refrigerator to get my drink, and I just put it down and never had it. And that was the last time I ever wanted one or thought about wanting one. I didn't quit drinking. God just took it away. And I don't know why he did those things but boy, am I glad he did. You know. I'm 85 and I was 57 when I accepted the Lord. I was an old person before I did. I don't know if I was stubborn or what, but